From the Kellogg Center for Continuing Education on the campus of Michigan State College, a report from the National Council on Family Relations holding their 13th annual meeting. Here to begin the program is Dr. Antone S. Cannon, chairman of the mass media section of the council. And here is Dr. Cannon.
Welcome, friends and family members, to a glimpse of the 13th annual conference of the National Council of Family Relations. Marriage is more important today than ever for several reasons. First, more people marry younger than ever before, and a higher proportion of persons of marriageable age are married. More people live longer, and more remarriage occurs than ever before. This added interest in marriage increases the interest that people find in this general field. Persons will depict the principal scenes connected with National Council of Family Relations. Our first panel includes persons connected with pioneering in this field. Next will appear officers in the organization. And finally, speakers will present the core of their messages. I introduce Mrs. Gladys Groves, editor of Marriage and Family Living, and a former vice president of the organization, and the widow of a president of the organization, Dr. Ernest Groves. Mrs. Groves.
The founders of the National Conference on Family Relations in 1938 are these leaders in marriage and family teaching, research, and professional service: Paul Sayre, professor of law; Rabbi Sidney Goldstein, then president of the New York State Conference on Family Relations; and Ernest W. Burgess. In that same year, Paul Sayre helped Ernest Burgess to found the journal Marriage and Family Living as the organ of the National Council on Family Relations. Under Dr. Burgess' 12 years editorship, the journal became an important medium for the distribution of original theory, research, interpretation, and critical discussion of materials in the area of marriage and the family. Since Dr. Burgess 4 years ago asked me to become the next editor, we have tried to follow the high standard he set. May I present Dr. Lawrence B., Departments of Anthropology and Sociology and Department of Home Economics, University of Kansas.
All civilizations have had a stake in the family, whether it be the primitive fuzzy wuzzy and their little fuzzy wuzzies, or the unique role of the family in the new communities of Israel. However, it's only recently, actually within the past 15 to 20 years, that professional concern with the whole family has emerged and grown. Today, the doctor treats not only the polio patient, but patients of different kinds of families, with varying standards of sanitation, diet, and not least, emotional patterns of relation. And so it is with the lawyer, the home economist, the social worker, the pastoral counselor, and a host of other professions. Since just before the late war, professional people and lay leaders have met first in small groups and then in state and regional groups, and we have here the grassroots beginnings of a council of professional men and women dedicated to the family, to creative marriage and family relations. Now I give you Dr. Mildred Morgan, Professor of Home and Family Life at Florida State University.
One of the finest things about this organization of which we are members is the opportunity to come to know people from all the different professions who are interested in the family and working in the family. And one of the finest things, we work interdivisionally in many of our national meetings. But another thing that has happened is the development of sectional meetings. For example, those people who are teaching in colleges and universities, those who are teaching in schools, all the way from kindergarten to adult education, those who are working in research, those who are working in the law and the courts and the family. And we're developing new sections as we go along, and our interests develop. And now I want to present Dr. Morris Karp of Beverly Hills, California, former professor of social work in the School of Social Welfare, New York City, chairman of the editorial board of our journal, Marriage and Family Living. Dr. Karp.
Like Dr. Morgan, I am primarily interested in the National Council on Family Relations because of its national professional and interdisciplinary nature. Its membership consists of sociologists, psychologists, physicians, social workers, lawyers, judges, and teachers of family life education. Our quarterly journal, Marriage and Family Living, which costs $5 per year and of whose board I have the honor to be chairman, endeavors to present materials which will meet the needs of all of these groups and will at the same time be interesting, stimulating, and provocative. A special section on marriage counseling is made possible for us through the cooperation of the American Association of Marriage Counselors. And now I give you Dave Treat, Director of the Clara Elizabeth Fund for Maternal Health of Flint, Michigan, our program chairman.
Our theme for the conference has been New Strengths for the Family Today. The planning for it has been done by the executive committees of the National Council and the Michigan Council on Family Relations. Our purpose has been to share with all our conference members the ideas that are fresh and new, give inspiration, give challenge, and have a great deal of fellowship. The participation has been exceptionally good. We've had more than 150 different people participate in the program. I'd like to present to you now our Vice President, Dr. David Folcomer, Professor of Family Sociology, Iowa State College, Ames. Dr. Folcomer.
The National Council really reaches out through the country via its various affiliates. Now, we have an affiliate in almost every state, and some of our affiliates are made up of a combination of states. Now, these affiliated councils are really the National Council at work because they are operating in areas where families are doing their living. Now, through their programs or conferences, institutes, and materials, they are giving practical, vital help to those who are working in this area of family life. And now I introduce Professor W. Clark Elsie, teacher and counselor at Stevens College, Missouri, and also secretary of our National Council.
There are more than 150 organizations and agencies and professional groups interested in helping the modern family to achieve a greater degree of stability. I sometimes think that if the modern family survives all this help that's being offered, it's going to be quite a family. Now, this National Council on Family Relations offers an opportunity for representatives of these different agencies and professions and groups to get together and exchange the benefit of their experience and information they've secured from it. And it takes someone of maturity and quite skilled in diplomacy to head such an organization and preside. We have just such a person in our next year's president, the chairman of the Family Life Department at the University of Minnesota, Mrs. Dorothy Dyer.
It is indeed a strategic time to be assuming the stewardship of an organization of such real, natural, national scope. One which for 15 years has accomplished the difficult task of getting together a variety of approaches to the problems of family living. From the previous statements of this group, you have gathered some idea of the overall program and scope. It is my hope that whether we teach or whether we counsel, we may, through greater coordination and redoubled effort this coming year, widen our agency participation and reach groups of those really dedicated to the cause of healthy, dynamic family living.
And now for highlights from conference speakers. First, Dr. Robert G. Foster, President of the National Council on Family Relations, Director of Marriage Counseling and Training Center, Menninger Foundation, Topeka, Kansas.
I believe the lack of the capacity to love, as well as our misconception of what love from a psychological point of view means, is both the basis of many of our problems in family life and professional relationships, as well as a solution to many of them. Love does not mean attachment. Love does not mean warmth and affection. Love does not mean generosity. Love does not mean charity when charity is used in the sense of being philanthropic and compassionate and sympathetic. These are variants of love. Love, as we understand it psychologically, through a peculiar coincidence, coincides with what the Greeks used to call agape, real charity in the ancient term of the Latin caritas. It is the love of thy neighbor. It is the love of other men. It is the love of other human beings. It is the love that gives you the feeling of the significance and value of another human being, as expressed in all great religions of the world, and this is the real cornerstone of Christianity.
Dr. Nelson Foote, Treasurer of the National Council on Family Relations, Director of the Family Study Center at the University of Chicago.
In order to develop our several sciences of family behavior, it is necessary to commence by specifying the outcomes which interest us. In order to distinguish these outcomes more and more accurately and communicably, we have to devise careful definitions and measures. Thus, the first fruit of any science above the level of simple description is the development of these various scales and indexes which permit comparison among families and over time. In recent years, we have accumulated a number of such measures of desired outcomes: adjustment, solidarity, stability, happiness, success, maturity, adaptability, competence. One of the foremost values of the attempt to measure is that it forces clarification of the objectives of any agency serving families. It is more important to account for the achievements of an agency each year than to audit its finances. Many of this audience are no doubt board members of many kinds of agencies. While usually not researchers themselves, they make an extremely important contribution to the growth of family research just by pressing this point. I hope that they feel encouraged by these words to bear down hard in demanding the evidence of results accomplished for the effort and resources expended by their agencies.
Dr. Robert A. Harper, marriage counselor, Washington, D.C., and a member of the editorial board of Marriage and Family Living.
In some respects, we may think of marriage and family counseling as an intensive and personalized form of marriage and family education. Such intensive and personalized education is made necessary by, one, the increasing complexity of marriage and family life today, two, the greater focus of individual need for the kind of combination of love and companionship found only in marriage and the family, and three, the inadequacy of preparation of young people for marriage and family responsibilities and functions. To need marriage counseling is no sign of weakness, but a normal sign of the times, a sign of desire, willingness, and need to get help for handling the inevitable problems of our complex everyday life.
You have just seen a report on the 13th annual meeting of the National Council on Family Relations, held on the campus of Michigan State College. This has been a video recording of Michigan State College Television.
Dr. Ernest G. Osborne, a former president of the National Council on Family Relations and head of Family Life Education in the department at Columbia University, New York.
As we have gathered together year after year, concerned ourselves with research, experimental studies, developments in the field, we have constantly been concerned as well with our relationships one to another and to those with whom we work. And this is as it should be. Today, in small groups, we are to have a chance to examine again some of the questions that we must constantly concern ourselves with. Some of these questions are as such. Is the nature of our field from which we should expect a higher level of personal and professional relationships than would be expected from other professional groups? Or are personal feuds, professional jealousies, and other divisive relationships as natural to us as to any other group? Are we, as teachers, obligated to represent the current mores of this culture? Or is it incumbent upon us as well to raise questions and consider objectively changes which may be occurring in our society and which must be considered? To what extent and under what circumstances do domestic difficulties of a worker in this field invalidate his contributions? And specifically, should divorce be considered a major obstacle to continued effectiveness? What about this business of popularization? Some of us write for popular magazines, and some of us are criticized by our colleagues. When is it desirable and legitimate? And when is it charlatanism? These are among the questions which we must face. You and I together in small groups then will look at these and others as we think and plan together.